Is your cold making it hard for you to get to sleep and leading to a bad morning? Switch to Mucinex Night Shift for fast, powerful nighttime multi-symptom cold and flu relief. Mucinex Night Shift fights your worst nighttime symptoms to help you get to sleep and wake up ready to go. Mucinex Night Shift. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
How about some fresh out of the oven gingerbread, bright snowdrop, fresh Iowa pine, and cool peppermint to put you in the holiday cleaning spirit? Made with goodness, not a lot of nonsense. Mrs. Meyer's. See what good can grow. Visit mrsmeyers.com today.
Do you like the Daily Blast but want even more analysis of the biggest headlines from around the world? Do you want an ad-free listening experience so there's nothing between you and expert commentary every day? Then consider becoming a member of the DSR Network, where you will also gain access to exclusive content across all of the DSR Network podcasts. Listeners of the Daily Blast can get 40% off of a monthly or annual membership using code BLAST at the dsrnetwork.com/buy. That's code BLAST at the dsrnetwork.com/buy. Now please enjoy the show.
This is the Daily Blast from the New Republic, produced and presented by the DSR Network. I'm your host, Greg Sargent. We're now in day 2 of the extraordinary GOP meltdown over Donald Trump's pick of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Numerous Republican senators are strongly opposing the move, including ones who are staunch Trump allies. One is even calling for the release of a House Ethics Committee report on Gaetz that examines drug use and sexual misconduct. Yet even as this is all happening, Trump just announced that he will nominate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. It's really hard to say which of these two will be more of a disaster, but taken together, the message is very clear. We may be in some serious trouble. We're chatting about all this with Nina Burleigh, author of a great new cover story for the New Republic called Trump 2.0, Here Comes the Night, which reports on how bad things are going to get. Thanks for coming on, Nina.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me, Greg.
So Gaetz first. Senators like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are sharply criticizing the idea of Gaetz as Attorney General. Others, like Tom Tillis, are saying he probably won't get confirmed. John Cornyn is demanding the release of this House Ethics Committee report, which looked into whether Gaetz had sex with a minor, which he denies, among other things. Gaetz has resigned his House seat, apparently to avoid the release of that report, but it might leak. Bits of it are already coming out. Nina, what do you make of all this? How real is the opposition to Gaetz?
Well, it's all happening so fast, it's hard to tell. Murkowski and Collins predictably would stand up, I think, at least in the beginning. That's not a surprise at all. I am a little bit surprised to see, Cornyn, Texas Senator Cornyn, asking for the ethics report this afternoon. I think that's a promising sign for sanity. I think that just in the last few days with these this wackadoodle clown car situation or whatever you want to call it, it's pretty clear that shock and awe is the road that they're going to travel. That was predicted to me when I was working on this article that you referenced about what might happen. The people who were predicting that thought that he would do shock and awe on day one, on the inauguration day when his hand came off the Bible, right? And so I think that what we're seeing here is, let's just lay the groundwork right now. This isn't going to be business as usual. Fuck you to the norms, and that the Senate, the Republican senators standing up. I mean, really, they're like the thin blue line for the public now, right?
So speaking of a fuck you, which was, I thought, a good phrase to use, while this was all going on, Trump announced that RFK Jr. will be his pick as HHS secretary, anti-science, anti-vax, conspiracy theorist. I want to point out that on October 30th, just before the election, Trump's transition co-chair, Howard Lutnick, went on CNN and flatly said RFK will not be in charge of HHS. They lied about everything. The contempt for voters here is just incredible. You reported on how bad things are going to get. Did you anticipate them going through with this?
I didn't anticipate them going through right away with putting Bobby Kennedy into the HHS because he's so far out in left field that it's difficult to imagine a scenario where somebody like that actually is in charge of the public health of millions of Americans. The anti-vaxxing aspect of RFK is, I guess, of a piece with the MAGA response to COVID, which is, the government's making us take these shots. But he's been at it for a very long time, and he has these utterly baseless claims about what vaccines do, and not just the COVID vaccine, but all the vaccines that keep babies from getting diseases that we can't even pronounce anymore because we have basically eradicated them through the vaccine programs. And so he wants to toss that out. But towards the end of the campaign, when he started talking about, the issue of, this mid 20th century paranoia about fluoride in the water, which is supposed to keep us from getting cavities, which apparently does protect our teeth. It's one of those mid 20th century Cold War era, really tinfoil hatty kind of paranoid beliefs that you thought were sort of like calling people pinkos and commies, which MAGAs are doing now. You sort of thought that was like left behind in this other era. And it's the Make America Great, again, kind of let's go back to 1950 and let's really disinter the paranoias and the way that anti-government sentiment was expressed then, which is, oh God, they're putting this stuff in the water and reinvigorating that kind of paranoia. And here now he's actually announcing that he's going to make Bobby Kennedy the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which means, Greg, that he can do things like tell the FDA to back off on things like raw milk, or all, any kind of warnings about quack medicine, that because he sort of comes out of the fake wellness conspiracy world, that let's not take certain drugs are bad for you, or the vaccines are bad for you, that this is all going to become part of the policy of this country. And, we're in a position right now where the farms out west are testing cows and humans for bird flu. Right now, today, there's stories about how many, people they're now testing for bird flu. We're on the verge of potentially another pandemic. So we're headed into this position where it's surreal.
HHS secretary is confirmable by the Senate. We're actually seeing a little bit of backbone from Republican senators when it comes to Gates. RFK is at least as crazy and potentially destructive as Gates. Do you think that we'll see Senate opposition among Republicans to him? At the very least, there's going to have to be a confirmation hearing at which his views are really aired out. And I've got to think a lot of Republican senators don't want that. I don't know where they're going to, choose their battles and so forth, but clearly this is not something that's good for the Republican Party, is it?
I think that they're probably going to stand up against Gates because of the criminal behavior, criminal charges or criminal, allegations against him. But I think Bobby, the wackadoodleness of it just seems like something they wouldn't want to have themselves tagged to. On the other hand, there is this sentiment out there, and it's very strong in the Trump voters, not just MAGAs, but Trump voters, about the government telling people to take these jabs. And so they may, look, all of their districts, a lot of those red districts were very anti-mask. They were very anti-COVID vaccine, even though, Trump's program, when they invented they created the mRNA on money that Trump, lots of money that Trump gave the companies. So those people are opposed to having the vaccines. And I suppose that at some level, maybe that there would be less opposition, even though he seems like a nutball, than the Gates confirmation and the Tulsi Gabbard confirmation as well.
I still think that Republican senators are going to have a really tough time once the confirmation hearings actually start to expose in a very high-profile way the views of this nut. I mean, this is going to be a moment where we're going to actually have a national discussion about whether he should oversee public health. I think that's terrible for Republicans. Trump's victory makes people think that they have magical powers and they can just win any debate, no matter how crazy their positions. And I kind of get that. I understand why people think that. But this is a tough one. People really care about their children's health and public health. And I think Republicans are going to have a tough time explaining this.
I think they are too. And I think traditionally what the conservatives do, the Republicans, when they get in charge of the executive with the HHS, is they put people in there who are anti-choice. They put the evangelicals in there. And so because they use HHS to police morality, really, to police the bodies, right? So that's probably who the Project 2025 people would have wanted. They want somebody like that in there, somebody who's a known anti-choice fanatic. And Bobby isn't really that. But, all bets are off. I honestly don't know how much of the clown card they're going to attach themselves to and want to be affiliated with, but we'll have to wait and see.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Bored at home? Head over to Chumba Casino and join some serious social casino fun. With hundreds of games at your fingertips, no purchase necessary. You can play anytime, anywhere. There's a special welcome bonus waiting for you when you sign up. Play for fun, play for free, and you could even redeem some great prizes. Visit ChumbaCasino.com and get ready to reel in the fun. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
It's a really interesting point. I mean, in a way, that sort of shows the MAGA takeover of the Republican Party, whereas before they would use HHS to police morality. Now they're using it to police vaccines. I mean, I think there will be tons and tons of morality policing in keeping with the religious right going on under the Trump administration, and in some ways they'll get worse. But here's a very high-profile example of them just putting in an anti-vax conspiracy theorist in a position that otherwise would have gone to a morality cop.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to look at the Bobby nomination in the context of this larger project, the autocracy's need for a population that is divorced from fact. And that, what you see in Russia or, places where people just don't anymore believe in any kind of expertise because they've been fooled and lied to so many times. And I think that's what part of this is sort of continuing to sort of, it's like a fog machine, right? A smoke machine, so that people just can't see anything. They can't see their way out. And they're blinded, and the only way they can feel like they can get to safety is by having the golden autocrat hold their hand and lead them to the light. And I think that's what's going on here. I think that it's really about it's about the smoke machine. It's about as Bannon's flood the zone with shit. I think he's flooding the zone with shit here.
And destroying the administrative state. I want to point out, to expand on what you said there, that that Gates is really about, turning the Department of Justice into a weapon against Trump's enemies. RFK is about destroying the administrative state from within in a certain respect. The justice system and public health system, those are real achievements. And they're already telegraphing that they want to destroy them both.
Well, yeah, and this is what MAGA's done, and this is what they signed up for when they refused to impeach him the second time and let him flourish for 4 years within their communities instead of more than two of them standing up and saying, no, this is absolutely wrong. This guy's a circus barker and he's making fools out of us and he's bringing a clown car into Washington. Are you really surprised that he's bringing the clown cart? He's a circus barker.
Absolutely. And they actually had a real opening to get rid of Trump once and for all because he had just tried to overthrow the U.S. government with violence. And he was on his way out of office anyway. That was the time to do it. They failed. They own every little last bit of this. Whether they get held accountable or not, I don't know.
Yeah, who can say? I mean, the voters were, they wanted to change. And I see that, that's what they're getting here. I mean, I think that there are a lot of the voters who are just sitting there going, yes, burn it down. They're angry. They didn't get any help from the Democrats for decades. The things that would have made a difference, national health care, minimum wage, did not get carried through. So, the body politic was ripe for this, right? It's been softened up and now they're angry and I think that they're probably cheering this on. They're cheering on and cheering on the mayhem and the chaos that he's bringing there, with the kind of, I guess, idea that if the government just evaporates or collapses, that everybody will have a better life. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I mean, it also is, Greg, as you know, you've been around long enough, the anti-government rhetoric that goes all the way back to Reagan, at least, I don't know, in my lifetime, maybe before, but that the growing, the seething rage at government and at, the federal government especially has been seeded for decades. And so now you're seeing the flourishing of what was planted by Gingrich and everybody else from Reagan on.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you got to wonder, though, there's a certain type of undecided and swing voter, at least undecided up to Election Day, swing voters, maybe Latinos who just sort of associate Trump with a good economy wrongly, I think. But there it is. A lot of these voters, maybe they just see Trump as a disrupting figure, a kind of anti-status quo figure. And you can kind of see from their perspective why they think that. In 2020, when Trump was in office, he got voted out because he was in office. And somehow, maybe partly because the law is rightly after Trump, he kind of reconfigured himself yet again as an outsider, despite being president one time, and as a disruptor of the status quo, which obviously everybody dislikes. I just think, that sort of superficial understanding of what Trump represents is now looking like it's going to be really disastrous, don't you think?
Well, it depends on how you define a disaster. I don't know. It may be that that the seeds of his demise are being planted right here and right now with this overreach. And that there is going to be, that somebody, the Senate will say, let's get with the Democrats and get this guy out of here. Or, you know what I mean? I mean, there may be such an uproar. Again, we haven't talked about Tulsi Gabbard, but the intelligence community is going to go nuts. They're going crazy over this, right? And the Defense Department, with the Fox News / war criminal cheerleader Pete Hegseth. I mean, maybe they're more comfortable with that kind of a person, but Gabbard and Bobby, I think they're going to have a problem attaching themselves to people like that. And so I think that there's a possibility that the disaster is going to be a kind of boomerang and back on them. Now, the problem is, of course, that to me, anything that the Senate tries to do they're going to come up against his autocratic instinct to just do stuff without their input. And who knows what, if it comes down to the Senate versus the president, I mean, what's the Supreme Court 6 going to say, right? They want to give him kingly powers, or they were ready to. So, it's going to be a wild ride, and we're not even, a week in here. We're not even a week in. We've got months to go before the inauguration.
I suspect that Harris's warning that he's unhinged and unstable is going to start to look more and more perceptive and important in retrospect. And I'm really hoping that sooner rather than later, people start to really reconsider what they've done here.
Well, but voters can reconsider, but there's nothing they can do about it. It's now up to the Senate and the House, but I don't think the House is going to do anything with it. It is really up to those men in the Senate and the two, the women that are the Republican women who are obviously not going to be on his side.
Well, look, Nina, I guess we're going to have to hope that those Republicans are really going to rise to the occasion. I'm pretty damn skeptical myself. Thanks for coming on, Nina Burleigh.
Anytime, Greg.
Folks, make sure to check out some great new content up at TNR.com. Matt Ford explaining how a federal court just upended decades of environmental regulation, and Timothy Noah arguing that Trump should be jailed for 1 week. And listen to the latest episode of Words Matter on the DSR network as Norm Ornstein and Kavita Patel take stock of our post-election situation and ask the question, where do we go from here? We'll see y'all next week. You've been listening to The Daily Blast with me, your host, Greg Sargent. The Daily Blast is a New Republic podcast and is produced by Riley Fessler and the DSR Network.